Okay, good morning. I hope you all found a seat. It's pretty full in here. There's still some seats here in the front. Welcome to the annual Forum of the Clean Energy for EU Islands, edition 2025. And welcome to the Azores. Obviously, the local dignitaries and will also welcome you and give some introduction on what is going on here. So I will skip that part, but very much welcome. So grateful that you are here with so many people. It's again a record edition. Now we're not doing this for the record, but we're doing this to come together with all the islands. And yesterday evening in the Jardim Botanico, we had already an introduction into the Azores and the clean energy for EU islands, and we counted the number of islands, and we were over 30 islands from all over Europe present here today in Ponta Delgada. So that's showing and a testimony that our network, our cooperation, our commitment for the clean energy for EU island is very much alive, and that we learn from each other, we are inspired by each other, and we hope to advance the clean energy transition in each of our islands by the inspiration that you got here. And this is the third forum of the fifth phase, or the sixth forum in total. We've been obviously in the Mediterranean, we've been in the Baltic Sea, we've been far east with Rhodos, far north with Saaremaa, and now we're in the Atlantic. And there's a reason for that. We wanted also to learn and to see what is going on here in the islands, the archipelagos of the Atlantic Ocean. And you won't be disappointed. There's a lot going on here. There's really interesting cases to be studied here and so forth. We are also, we already in this third phase, it's the third forum. We had 12 workshops already, where many of you have already met, so we're starting to get to know each other. We delivered already 20 reports in the framework of the technical assistance that we're giving to the islands, and some projects are really maturing, and I hope really to see some getting implemented or starting implementation soon. And we also have 40 follower islands who are following closely what we are doing, trying to emulate what we are doing. And so I think it's fair to say that the fact that we're here together with so many people is building on all of these events, all of these actions that we have put in place, and that all together make for a gigantic source of inspiration for the clean energy transition. And in the beginning of the year, we were in Brussels, exceptionally, because usually we do our activities on islands, and especially the forum we'll always do on an island. But we were in Brussels, and there was a reason for it, because we wanted to draw attention of the Brussels policymakers to the situation of the islands, and particularly the need for investment in grids, grid reinforcement, grid management, and capacity to manage a grid of the 21st century with a lot of renewables on it. And we've seen recently how important that is. And those who want to know more about the Spanish blackout, there's specialists here, and especially João, who you can see the clips on television on what he has to say about that. But it shows that grids are key also, and especially on island. And we launched a call for an island grid pact. And I saw today, this morning, that the consultation on grids has been opened. And I want to invite you all to respond to that and call for attention for the grids in islands and peripheral regions. I mean, we don't need to be exclusive on islands, for grids on islands and peripheral regions, because it's not only about the interconnection between member states, it's also about the smaller grids, the DSO grids, where a lot of these renewables are connected, and where also some of the vulnerabilities of the system are growing. So if you want to do that, please react, because it is our ambition to point the attention to the island grids in you know, the bigger, obviously, the bigger programs, the bigger initiatives that are going on in Brussels. Now, talking of Brussels, obviously in Brussels, home of the European Commission, and as always, we've been delighted and also honored to have such a support by the European Commission. There are three here. There's Nicole and Edita, and here's the introduction to the next speaker. So we have Alejandro Ulzurrun de Asanza y Munoz. I practiced. The head of unit of Consumer Local Initiatives and Just Transition, and I'm very happy to give him the floor and speak to you and introduce this initiative to you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jan, for the very kind introduction, and you practiced very well. I'm really amazed. Good morning, bon dia. It's a real pleasure to be here in Azores with all of you. So the first thing I would like to do is to welcome you on behalf of the European Commission to this annual Islands Forum. When I say it's important to be here, and the setting is always important. We know it, some of you have been in other forums, and you know these forums, these fora particularly are good for inspiration, as Jan was saying, and for exchanging knowledge and views and thoughts. And thinking about the setting, the first thing I would like to do is to thank the autonomous region of the Açores for hosting us. It's a fantastic setting, but the setting is not only the relevant thing from Azores. Azores has 40% renewables in the energy mix, an ambitious 2030 energy strategy, many interesting energy projects, and amazing nature. So I think that being in Azores today will allow us to learn a lot from what has been done and to further our knowledge and inspiration. Thank you very much. We're really very happy to be here. And I'm really so happy to see all of you. The island community is growing every year. I see many known faces, but I also see new faces. And I think in particular today or this week, we welcome representatives from what is called the 40 follower islands who have joined us for the first time. So first of all, they are not so you are not followers, you are part of it. I mean, you might have this impression that you come to a party when everything hasn't started yet, and you might feel a little bit like, okay, what's going on? And it might take you a lot. You are most welcome. You're part of the group. You're part of the fun. And we really invite you to be active part of today and tomorrow's discussions. So, from the welcoming, now let's go into the real thing, the policy. So some of us, or the previous forum took place last year. So first of all, years go very quickly, I'm amazed. In this year, really a lot has happened. You all know that. And particularly, important things have happened in Brussels. We all, European citizens, voted for a new European Parliament. And out of this new European Parliament came a new European Commission with a new policy mandate and concrete missions for each of the policy areas. Obviously, these missions don't start from scratch. These new missions build into the achievements of the European Union on the last years and decades, but also on the learnings, and they take into account, of course, the challenges of today, which are many. Now, speaking of challenges or mission or vision, what we have to do, we must do for the next years is to focus on how to achieve the targets for 2030 and 2050, while ensuring that energy is affordable for citizens and companies, that European companies remain competitive, and all that in a rather complex world. The world is not getting less complex, let's put it like that. The complexities are there, and we need to tackle that. And to tackle that, we have laws, we have rules, we have regulations, we have targets. Setting those targets and adopting legislation is important, but that is just the first step. What we need after that is implementation and real results on the ground. And this is really one of the key priorities from President von der Leyen for the next 5 years. And the implementation doesn't happen like that, spontaneously. The implementation is the result of authorities, of stakeholders, of companies, of citizens, of all of you. So you are the ones who are implementing our policies. And here's my first message: we really need you. And today's event is part of that. And of course, implementation, legislation implementation is not an abstract thing. We need to make sure that all EU citizens benefit from the transition, a just transition, so benefiting all people, all regions, and also make sure that citizens are empowered to take action in the transition if they want, as individuals or collectively. So, all that to say that a lot of work has been going on to make sure that we have a strategic direction in the EU for the next years, including on energy policy. And now, let me go a little bit into the details of energy policy, hinting at a couple of initiatives. So I don't want to do like here a big expose, a big lecture, but just I want to flag a couple of things which are relevant for you, for us, for islands. So, first of all, on the broader political context, you might be pleased, or you will probably be pleased to hear that the Commission is committed to carry out a consultation on the development of a strategy for Ireland. This commitment stems from the acknowledgement that we need to more systematically address inherent constraints stemming from the island's physical disconnection and remoteness from the mainland, and that, of course, concerns, among others, the energy aspects. So I'm giving here you a little bit of a scoop or fresh news. This is an action which is broader than energy, so it is carried out by the Vice President of the European Commission in charge of regional policy. The colleagues who work for the Vice President, they are working on the internal preparatory work, and there will be further steps, and we will definitely keep you on those further steps because of the broader policy on islands, of the broader strategy on islands, the energy angle is certainly very, very relevant. Now, going from this rather generic or general process to more specific energy priorities, I would like to mention really 4 key priorities. Bringing down energy prices for households and consumers, producing more clean energy everywhere in Europe, upgrading the grid infrastructure. We heard what Jan said a moment ago about the importance of the grid. And by the way, thanks a lot, Jan, for mentioning the opening of the consultation. You've got to input that. But also today and tomorrow's event are in a way help us, the representatives of the European Commission, to gather elements that we can also feed into that consultation. And fourthly, also really very relevant in view of recent developments, but also in general, we need a resilient and secure energy system. Resilience is also a key priority. All these 4 things that I have said are important for the EU, are a priority for the EU, but are of great importance for islands. I hope you would agree. And not only they are important in the sense that they are relevant for you, but they are also important in the sense that you already have experience and knowledge on how to deal with these priorities, and you can bring a lot of input to the definition of the policy actions along these 4 actions. Let me now go a little bit more into the detail of what we want to do on issues where islands are also very relevant in terms of inputs and outputs. The citizens' energy package. I mentioned the mandate for the new commission. The mandate is an actual mandate. So President von der Leyen writes a letter to the commissioners, and she tells them, you have to do this and that and that. So she wrote a letter to the Commissioner for Energy and Housing, Dan Jurgensen, and she told the commissioner that he has to put forward a citizens' energy package, I quote, with the aim to increase citizens' participation in the energy transition and strengthen the social dimension of the energy union, and to propose further measures to address energy poverty. One of the key objectives here is to make sure that all citizens in all parts and regions of the union can benefit from clean and affordable energy, which is the title of the forum. So we are already in the European Commission working on the preparation of this package, which should build around a few pillars. First of all, tackling energy poverty and ensuring a just transition. Secondly, empowering citizens and communities to participate and benefit from the energy transition, including with concrete actions to address barriers and financing gaps for energy communities. And thirdly, to build energy citizenship through awareness, participation, skills, and transparency. All these things, as I said before, are key for the EU, but also key for regions and communities, and definitely for islands, because it is the local authorities, it's the local level who is required, who is responsible for delivering a lot of the policy actions, and also because it is at local level where citizens look for when they need to find solutions, when they want to make their homes future-proof, when they want to adopt solutions which are fostering the energy transition. Islands can show the way. I insist. You are here not passive listeners to policy. You are here as drivers of policy. You have a lot of experience. You have a lot of examples of how community action and involvement of citizens can help to advance the energy transition and increase, something also very important, public acceptance of the renewable energy projects. So here I would also like to do a little bit of unpaid advertising in the same sense that Jan mentioned that there was open consultation on grids. In the next few weeks, and we will keep you posted about it, we will also have an open public consultation on the topic of the citizens' energy package. And there as well, I think it would be important that you provide your input as islands. Another important element that for the next months from the EU policy perspective is the Electrification Action Plan. In the beginning of 2026, the Commission is expected to deliver such plan, the Electrification Action Plan, to make sure that Europe's transition towards net zero economy is powered by an energy system with affordable, homegrown clean electricity. And this is needed to address specific challenges and solutions, in particular regarding the electrification of isolated or poorly connected systems, such as those of many islands, outermost or peripheral regions. So again, this is not theoretical for you. You are at the center of it. You are part of it. Speaking of islands cooperation, during the last years working together, we have developed a solid overview of the key drivers, challenges, and barriers for energy transition. And we have a really nice catalog of examples, solutions, and best practices on the various elements and stages of the energy transition of the islands. Because let's not forget that all the actions that need to be done, they are multi-stage and multi-actor. There is not one single person who does or one single entity who does everything. There's a lot of stages and a lot of people involved. What we know from all this experience and examples is that islands can shift away from fossil fuels and run renewable energy-powered systems. And this is way cheaper and cleaner than shipping fossil fuel to the islands and burning it to produce energy. That's a fact. We know it thanks to your work. We also know that island network operators can build and safely manage grids with very high share of renewables in the system, which is not easy. There's a need of support and investment, but it does work. Proven by many good examples on different islands, including in Azores, where we have good examples of that. And what we know as well is that the many solutions developed and tested on the islands can be scaled up and applied in other parts of Europe, also in the mainland, in case of remotely or poorly connected areas or saturated grids. So again, I insist, what we learn from the islands can be used or adapted to the mainland. So this gives us a solid base to engage all of us together, islands, member states, network operators, developers, utilities, EU policymakers, etc. Now, the trick is how we make the best of it, how we build on this experience to have a more systematic approach towards enabling a faster energy transition in the EU islands and in other isolated or poorly connected areas. So, to our slogan, clean energy for EU islands, we will add faster. That's the trick. We need to be, it's very nice, but the need is there. Okay, but from political level, it's nice to hear, you have to do fast, but how? Okay, so I will give a couple of ideas on how. At political level, as I was mentioning, we intend to include the islands angle in the citizens package, and where relevant, in other strategic development documents under development, such as the Electrification Action Plan that we are mentioning. And as I said, today and tomorrow's discussions are important. Me and my colleagues were here listening very attentively in order to fit that process. More operationally, we are already in discussions with member states on how to take forward the recommendations on the islands grids study delivered last year, produced by the secretariat, and which is, I must say, an amazing basis for further work and to go forward faster. And what we're doing with member states, we're looking at their support for national regulators and island network operators to sign up a voluntary joint commitment to implement the commonly agreed best practices on grid access and management policies that we identified in the study, to enable higher share of renewables in the island's energy system, something which we could call an island grid pact. We also want to look deeper at potential financing sources for investment in islands' energy transition beyond traditional programs and schemes. And in this sense, we're working with member states on how to refocus the significant subsidies that they pay for electricity production on islands away from fossil fuel-based electricity production to renewable energy and upgrade of the networks. And in this, to give shape to all this, we will carry out some studies in the weeks and months to come. Here also, if you have ideas of particular angles that we should be looking into, we would be very glad to hear about that today, tomorrow, in the discussions or in bilateral exchanges. So, you will be now very happy to hear that I am going to stop talking, because I have the feeling that I talked a lot. So I hope this was not too boring for the beginning of this event, and it gave you a glimpse of what we have in Brussels on how our collective work can further the agenda for islands, but also for the EU in general. I always like to recall, when I do this, that the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union places great emphasis on the unique situation and challenges of insular territories, and in particular of the outermost regions. So EU policies have to take this into consideration and can also greatly benefit from the pioneering efforts by you, because you are at the center of the EU work. I would like to insist on that. So let's have a great 2 days of discussions. I cannot wait to hear the stories, the ideas, to be inspired by you, because you know what is happening on the ground. We come from Brussels, okay, we know, but we really need to hear from you, because you are the ones doing it. And before concluding, let me thank again a lot the autonomous region of the Azores, and its highest representative here. We are really very honored that you're there to show the importance that you give to this event. Thanks for the hospitality and thanks for the excellent organization. I think we're going to have a fantastic 2 days that we will remember. Thanks a lot to the EU Island Secretariat, to Jan. Jan embodies the whole team which is here and which is doing fantastic work, very hard work, which in a way is only the tip of the iceberg, because it's a process, and what we see here is one yearly event, but there is much more than that to make sure that islands are at the center of EU policy action. Then if you allow me, maybe it's a bit self-thankful, but I would like to thank Edita and Nicole. Everybody, I think everybody knows Edita Transekaite by now. She's the leader of EU Islands work for many years. And we're also here together with Nicole Verzeip, who is the team leader for local initiatives, which is broad. Voilà, Nicole, you're there. You will have the opportunity to hear from Nicole and from Edita during the 2 days. They are doing fantastic work. And my last word of thanks, of course, is thanks a lot to all of you, because you made the trip. You're here, you are engaged, and I really would like to thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you for the support the European Commission has been giving us for the last 5 years. It's much appreciated. It's also much appreciated that you're here in person together with the team. Now we're going to turn, obviously, to representatives of the region, autonomous region of the Azores. And we are in the Azores, not only because it's beautiful islands, beautiful nature. Apart from the best islands in the Caribbean, we can't go further west in Europe. But we're also here because it's a very interesting islands, or these are very interesting islands from a clean energy point of view. And I think the Azores, and not all capitals will like to hear this, but the Azores have shown how to use autonomy well in shaping the clean energy transition on their islands. And so I will gladly hand the floor first to Paulo André, President of the Board and CEO of Electricidade dos Açores, and then afterwards Berta Cabral, the Regional Secretary for Tourism, Mobility and Infrastructure, and they will welcome us on behalf of the Azores. Please, you have the floor.
Bom dia, welcome to the Azores. It's a privilege to be able to present an overview of what we are doing on the electricity market on the Azores. Only for you to understand how our sector is organized on the Azores, we are a Portuguese autonomous region, and all the strategic definition of the electrical sector is done by the regional government. EDA, it's a company that was created by the regional government in 1981 that merged all the municipalities that handle the electricity market in all the 9 islands of the Azores. And in 1981, there was a decision to group all these companies and form EDA as it's known today. We are a majority public-owned company. 50.1% of the shares are owned by the regional government, but we have other private investors on the company, mainly EDP, that have 10% of the company. EDP is the Portuguese company of the electrical sector, and ESA, it's a local-owned company that have 39.7%. We are also responsible for the concession of the transmission, distribution and electricity and the management of the electrical system on all 9 islands until 2050. We also operate 9 thermal power plants, 1 in each island, that ensure the security of supply, and also we are responsible for the commercialization of energy on all 9 islands. Our activity is regulated by the national regulator, ERS, since 2003, We have a specific regulator framework that ensures that in Azores and Madeira, that it's another archipelago from Portugal, we pay the electricity at the same price as on the mainland. This is very important for us, and this was one of the major gains for the autonomous region. We also owned a company that it's called EDA Renováveis. It's a company owned by EDA in 100%, and EDA Renováveis is responsible for doing renewable projects on all 9 islands, mainly geothermal, hydro, wind and solar. The renewable sector is opened to the market. We also have some private operators competing with EDA Renováveis. Historical overview, it's also important for you to understand where we came and where we are heading. Our first hydro plant was on 1899, a long time ago. At that time, and until 1950, São Miguel Island, where we are, was only supplied by hydro power stations. All the electricity on this island was supplied by hydro power stations. In 1906, we had our first storage facility. It was a small dam that managed some energy. In 1908, we installed our first diesel power station in Terceira Island. Our first geothermal power station started working in 1980. It was a pilot power station at the time. We started drilling in São Miguel in the 70s, and the first project was established in 1980. The first wind farm was in Santa Maria Island in 1988. We weren't the first wind station in Portugal for 1 month. We lost that to Madeira, but was the first two wind farms in Portugal was in Madeira and Santa Maria Island. In 1999, we had a first wave energy plant in Pico. It was a pilot project done in conjunction with some companies and the iTechnical Institute. Now it's stopped, but it was a very important project to understand the wave energy. In 2005, we established the first flywheels connected to the grid in Flores, and later in 2006 in Graciosa. They were the first connected to a public grid, and they enabled the penetration of more renewables on those islands and to stabilize the grid in terms of frequency control. In 2019, it was established the first PV plant in Graciosa Islands, associated to a project done by a private company, Graciolica, that I will talk a little bit more on this presentation. And in 2019, they also established the first BESS facility in the Azores with the lithium-ion batteries. The first one was established by a private-owned company, as I said, in Graciosa, but now we have another one in Terceira Island and another in São Miguel. Those two are owned by EDA. To have an overview of what are the 9 systems that we operate. We operate in 9 different islands in terms of population and electrical necessities. You can see the smaller one, Corvo, that have around 400 inhabitants. We have 300 kilowatts of peak power, so it's a very small microgrid. And the biggest one is São Miguel, the islands where we are. We have around 125,000 inhabitants and 79 megawatts of peak power. Half of the population and more than half of the population of the electrical consumption is here in São Miguel. And São Miguel and Terceira, the biggest islands, have 80% of the electrical consumption of the Azores. The islands are not electrically interconnected between themselves because technically we don't have solutions for that until now. We have very depth on the seas between the islands, rocky beds underneath the water. We don't have sand, and very high currents and some underwater volcanoes. So technology, it's not yet evolved to allow us to interconnect the islands with underwater cables. So we need to run 9 independent systems that have different power productions and different challenge every day. The best examples for renewable penetration that we have, it's Graciosa, that we achieved in 2024 60% of renewables. We already achieved 65% on the past. Then we have Flores, 46%. We have a lot of hydro in Flores that allow us to have a lot of renewables. And São Miguel Islands with 45% because we have a lot of geothermal installed. I think you're going to be able to visit the geothermal power plant, one of them. Then we have Terceira with 21%. We have a small share of geothermal also that allow us to have these shares of renewables. And in all the remaining islands, we only have wind parks and starting to have some solar, that it's intermittent renewable sources that are more difficult to achieve higher penetrations. But I will explain with some of the cases that we already have. Another important thing that I forgot, mainly our grids are overhead lines. The underground lines only are a small percentage, around 27%, because the higher cost for underground lines, it's not easy to achieve. Let's talk a little bit about São Miguel, the islands that we are now. This last year, we achieved 44.5% of renewable penetrations, mostly because of geothermal. 35.6% of that was because of geothermal. Also because of wind, we have a wind park near Nordeste, 3.1%. We have a lot of hydros, but very small micro hydros, run of the river hydros. We don't have storage capabilities. They account for 5.2%. And we have some biogas and solar facilities that are increasing. And now last year they were 0.6% of the energy supplied. One of the most important facilities that we have now, you can see on the left, upper left, is the energy storage facility based on lithium-ion batteries. It's a 20 megawatt hour facility. It was funded by European funds. Very important for us to have opportunity to use these funds, because without them we cannot establish this type of projects. As I said, we are a regulated company and we cannot establish this type of projects at any cost. We have to be cost effective. We have to justify the costs for the regulator to accept them, because if the regulator cannot accept them, it's our internal costs. It's not possible to execute this way. So the European Community funding is very important for us. We have all the production facilities scattered around the island, as you can see on the map. And this maybe it's the most important and technologically difficult thing to manage. Our typical day load diagram is what you can see on the left. You can see that we have a very big difference on the demand during the night, where we have less load to supply to the grid, and during the peak hours. You can see the green line is the wind. What you can see is that our base load is mainly geothermal and hydro. Why? Because they are stable sources. Our geothermal, as we used to say, is our nuclear energy, because we have a stable power output from them, but they cannot do load following on the grid, so they need to be at a stable power output. But our baseline is done by geothermal and hydro stations. The diesel engines that we run on the grid need to follow the load and maintain the grid stability and control the frequency and voltage. So during the night, where we have less load to supply to the customers, and where we have more instability because we have less load on the diesel engines, we need to stop some of the renewables. You can see that the green line is the wind. During the night, we need to stop the wind because we don't have space to have more renewables on the grid. Why? Because we need to run the diesel engines at the minimum load. It's around 40% of their load, but we need to have enough diesel engines online to have safety of supply. We need to have inertia, and if something fails or something goes wrong on the grid, we need to have equipment that can react fast and maintain the grid stability and the security of supply. Nowadays, we only add diesels to do that. With the battery, we are trying to replace the diesels on this function. The battery can have a static spinning reserve. We have a spinning reserve similar to what we have now with the diesel engine. The battery, because of the inverters that are grid forming, we can control frequency and voltage. Its capabilities can also substitute the capabilities of a diesel engine. And we have a small scale for energy storage. We cannot have in a bigger scale because it's not yet cost effective to implement on islands energy projects with a big scale. So what we are trying to do is to use the battery to be possible to substitute one of the diesel engines, okay? And to replace the functionality of this diesel engine on the grid. And by that, we will allow the load diagram to have a little bit more of space to increase the renewable penetrations. We have now 2 ongoing projects in São Miguel that are very important for us and for the future. They are both also funded by the Resilience Program. One of them is the expansion of the Pico Vermelho power station. We are going to double the power installed on that power station, more 12 megawatts of installed power. And the other one is the older power station where we are going to substitute 2 turbines and to increase the power installed there, more 5 megawatts of installed power. For you to understand, geothermal projects are not easy to do. We start drilling in 2019, and we only had results that it was viable to continue the project 4 years later. So it's a very high-cost project with very long time demanding for establishing these projects, and we cannot say, I want to install 12 megawatts. We need to drill to see what is the power that we can achieve, and after that we can try to understand if it's feasible or not, the installation of this renewable source. But you will see better when you visit on site. With these 2 installations that are going to be running in 2026, we expect that São Miguel can leap from the today 45% of renewables to more than 60% of renewables, because we already have the battery with the control system installed in São Miguel. Another important thing that I didn't explain is that the energy storage projects are not based on batteries. They need to be based on control systems, because the important part are not the batteries and the inverters. The important part is the control system that maintain the stability of all the production sources and are accounted for the decisions that need to be done and need to be taken minute after minute to maintain the grid stability and to maintain the higher share of renewables that it's possible on each moment. Another good project that I would like to show you is Graciosa. Graciosa, as I said, was done by a private-owned company, Graciolica. Duarte is here with us. He managed this facility. He can explain you better than me what they do, but this was done. This started in 2006 with an idea from a German company, and they start producing in 2019. At the time when this started, this was an R&D project. No one had thought in a similar project like this. They had also a small funding from the European community to do this installation. It's a 7.4 megawatt battery 2.6 megawatt hour energy battery. They installed 1 megawatt of solar and 4.5 megawatts of wind. But I need to remind you that we have a 2.5 megawatt of peak power on this island. So it's, they need to install overcapacity of renewables in order to get this type of penetration in a yearly basis. They could do with 52.9% of wind last year and 7.1% of solar. It was also possible to operate the island of Graciosa during more than 7 days continuous without diesel online, only with renewables. This is a very good number to show. 7 days, it's a long time. But this is also achieved, as I said, for the example of São Miguel, that we are doing also in Terceira, and we need to do it on all the other islands, is that this is achieved not because of the batteries, but because of an innovative energy management system also, okay? This system in Graciosa, it's fully automated. It also starts diesel engines and stop diesel engine when it's needed, full automated, and maintain the stability of all the production sources on the island. We can show you the difference that we had on the past, on the left, on your left, and what we have now. You can see, for example, a typical week of August, where we don't have wind in August. On the past, it was 100% of diesel. Now, you can see the green color, that it's very different than we used to have on the past. On September, where we have more wind, you can see that is completely different, and we can achieve a lot of renewable penetrations on Graciosa with this small microgrid. But as a regulated company, as I said, that we have obligations to comply, and one of them is the quality of supply. We need to comply with the quality of supply. It's a standard that it's all over Europe. There's some little changes for the island companies. We have a little bit more, how can I say, deviation on some things that we need to comply, but we need to comply with the power quality of supply. This was one of the challenge, but we can see here that the actual technology can allow us not only to comply, but to enhance the power quality of supply on those situations. We are getting less variations on frequency and on voltage because of the inverters that we are using. We are using inverters that allow to do frequency and voltage regulations. They are special type of inverters. Not all inverters on the market can do this, but we need to use the special type that are more expensive and difficult to control. As an overview of all the islands, you can see that on instant we have Graciosa and Flores that we can reach 100% of renewables already. Flores only with water, okay? We have São Miguel that in an instant we can reach 84% of renewables. It is very high numbers, maintaining the grid stability and the safety of supply. This is very important for us, and the quality of the energy also. On one day, we can achieve 100% in Graciosa, 86% in Flores, 61% in São Miguel, and 58% in Terceira. This is a lower number. Why this number is lower? Because we need also always to maintain the grid stability, the quality of supply, and we cannot have the grids running with excess of renewables without having enough inertia on the grid to maintain the stability and to maintain the power quality. And when anything goes wrong on the electrical grid, we need to have safety of supply and ensure safety response for that. So we still have a big share of diesel. In the biggest islands it's fuel oil, on the small islands it's diesel as we use on cars. We also need to have a small share of diesel on the islands. For you to understand what we are doing in terms of investment, because this requires a lot of money. For the next 5 years, we are going to invest more than 300 million euros in EDA and 150 million in EDA renováveis. Okay? Most of these are going for safety of supply, 43%. Why? Because we need to maintain the diesel engines running. Some of them have more than 25 years of age. We need to substitute them for new ones. And we need also to have a big part of this investment for the quality of supply. New lines, overhead lines, new substations, new technologies. We need to maintain a big investment on the electrical grids. We also have 15% for the new energy storage facilities that we want to expand to the other islands. But we need to find funding from the EU to help us to accomplish that. It's not easy to have this, but we are trying to find an help for that. We have, as I said, ongoing construction and refurbishment of the geothermal power plants. This is very important. We are constructing also wind plants and PV plants. We are also ongoing with the transitions to the smart meters that we are going to end in 2028. They are going to be very important to manage all the grids and to increase the capability that we will have to have more ways to control the demand and the production. And we have also several R&D projects, most of them you know, because we need to be on top of the evolution of the technology, because we have a very important thing that can be used. Because of our small size, we are a very easy test bed for some of the projects. It's more cost effective to test concepts on smaller grids and to see the results and then to upscale to other places. So, but as I said, we have a lot of difficulties that are important to state. We are a small market, so we are less competitive efficiency to acquire service. Most of the big players on the market doesn't look at us as a competitive market that they can earn a lot of money. They see us most of the times to sell innovative solutions, but on the other normal projects, it's difficult to have them to collaborate with us. We have higher costs because of our logistic operation, the transportation between islands, and the handling of equipment and materials. And don't forget, we have this problem here in the Azores, because we have a bigger island as São Miguel that it's more easier than to go to Corvo. It's much more costly and much more difficult to handle logistic in the smaller islands. So we are isolated inside our isolation. So it's important to understand that all 9 islands are all different and have different difficulties and different problems to address. We also have a high risk associated with the public procurement. This is mandatory by European community for public companies as ours. But public procurement have penalties, risk management, high costs, high risks for the players. And don't forget that now the energy market on the world is booming. The big companies prefer to go to private contracts because they don't have these risks than to apply to public projects and contracts. So this is another problem to try to convince companies to work with us. This is one of the major problems that we are facing now. Energy is booming everywhere and they don't have enough manpower and the equipments to address all the procurement that is being done. We also have adverse weather, mainly on winter, compared to other realities. We need to strengthen our infrastructures. This goes to have higher investment costs and more needs for maintenance, because we need to have more maintenance with shorter cycles on these facilities. For example, our overhead lines need to be prepared for wind gusts higher than 150 kilometers per hour. This is not normal in a continental region. You don't have a lot of overhead lines dimension for this type of situations. Our wind turbines need to be class 1. This higher infrastructure prepared for higher winds, higher gusts. So this is also costly for us. Another very important thing that I've heard with a lot of attention is that we are part of the European Union, but we need to maintain some exceptions and derogations because we are different from the rest of Europe. I need to say that, for example, the phase out of the diesel, that it's addressed on all over Europe, we cannot phase out the diesel in the islands. So we need to have some derogations from the European Union. We need to continue to have those derogations to continue to be able to work with our difficulties and our challenge. So it's important also for the people that decide in Brussels to understand the difficulties of an island. It's very different from the mainland, and we still need to have different support, and the laws that are being addressed need to look out for our special needs. And another different thing that it's all of you face in everywhere, it's the difficulty in recruiting young and labored and skilled people. This is a big challenge, mainly for us that live in an isolated island. It's a very good island to live. We have very good quality of life, good environment, but it's not easy to allow people to come here and want to establish their living here. So, conclusions, we are focused on the goal of maximizing the integration of renewable sources. We are carrying out several projects to achieve this goal, always keeping as a priority the stability of the system and the quality of service. This is our main concern, maintain the lights operating, because all the economic activity on the islands rely on that. And with the constant electrification of the industry and of the how can I say, the islands, this energy is every time more important on the day-to-day support. The support of European Community funding programs is essential to enable the implementation of innovative projects. This is one major concern that we have. We need to have help from the European Community to establish those projects. We know that now it's not easy because we are shifting to the defense industry, but we need to apply, and we need to maintain some funding for our needs. We are also following the developments on the synthetic and green fuels, because we believe that the diesel engine will have a future. The diesel engine can continue operating with the new synthetic and the green fuels. It's an important technological equipment to maintain grid stability, safety of supply of our isolated grids, and using new fuels, green fuels that are going to be developed on the near future, we can achieve the environmental goals, maintaining those important aspects. And the know-how that we are obtaining, will enable sustainable energy solutions for the future. Okay? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for this deep dive into the Azores electricity system, and I think we went to the heart of the matter immediately, which is great. Last welcome by Mrs. Berta Cabral, Regional Secretary for Tourism, Mobility and Infrastructure. Please, you have the floor.
Good morning to all of you. Mr. President of Consumers, Local Initiatives and Just Transition, Alejandro Munoz. Senhora Diretora Regional da Energia, do Governo Regional dos Açores. Sr. Presidente do Conselho de Administração da EDA, que nos trouxe aqui uma excelente apresentação. It was a very good address from Paulo André. Mr. Ricardo Novo, member of the Clean Energy for You Islands. Mr. Jean Cornillie, Director of the project, distinguished entities representing all the islands, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a deep sense of responsibility and enthusiasm that I welcome you all to the Azores on one of the most significant events on the European calendar dedicated to the energy transition in island regions, that is this 2025 Forum of the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative. On behalf of the regional government of the Azores and our president, I would like to thank the Clean Energy for EU Islands secretariat for choosing our region to host this annual forum. It is a great honor for the Azores to welcome this technical, scientific, institutional, and businesses community deeply committed to building a cleaner, safer, and better future. We are confident that this will be a great opportunity to joint work, exchange experiences, as well as a chance to discover and experience what it truly means to be a sustainable island destination, which is Azores, of course. The Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative is an essential tool for achieving one of the most important goals for our time, the energy transition. At a time when the world faces increasing challenges in energy supply and security, with intense pressure to reduce greenhouse gas emission and achieve independence from fossil fuels, European islands should be seen as living laboratories that can facilitate this transition. This is an opportunity and a priority we must not miss, and the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative has been a key catalyst for mobilizing, empowering, and funding this transformation. The Azores have clearly shown their commitment to this process. We are one of the first island region to join the initiative and have been committed to take full advantage of this cooperation, technical assistance, and of course, resources that it can provide. We are deeply committed to the clean energy cause and have strived to translate this commitment in action, concrete projects, and measurable results. In this context, we developed the Azorean Energy Strategy 2030, a guiding document that sets ambitious goals for decarbonizing the regional economy and increasing the integration of renewable energy sources into our electrical system. The goals are clear. Until 2030, we are aiming to reduce the use of butane gas by 50%, increase energy efficiency by 25% in land transport, increase energy efficiency in buildings by 28%, improve energy efficiency by 40% in businesses, achieve 70% of renewable electricity, improve energy efficiency by 33%, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40%. These are ambitious goals that show how deeply committed we are. Nonetheless, allow me a word of caution constraint, a caution that Paulo André talked about it. The green transition, however necessary is desirable, requires a responsible, sustained, and technically sound approach. The recent blackout that affected several countries, especially Spain and Portugal, should serve a warning about the risks that can emerge in complex energy systems. In the case of Azores, this challenge is even more challenging, more demanding. We are an outermost region which has 9 islands, as you have seen, with 9 independent microgrids, no interconnection, limited storage capacity, and reduced ability to respond to extreme events. It is in this context that we must manage the transition with stability and with our feel firmly on technological and financial reality. Despite these challenges, I reaffirm with confidence our drive to develop the Azores as a sustainable region. We are not only recognized as a sustainable tourism destination at gold level certified by an international company, EarthCheck, we are also pioneers in establishing a network of marine protected areas that safeguards over 30% of the Azores maritime territory, striking a balance between conservation, biodiversity, and economic development. This commitment to sustainability has been one of the main drivers of tourism growth in the Azores, a balanced growth based on harmonious interaction between economic, social, and environment dimensions. In 2024, we achieved over 4.2 million overnight stays and exceeded 200 million euros in accommodation results. These figures are evidence of the strength of a development model that respects natural heritage, promotes local identity, and values companies. In this regard, in 2025, Clean Energy for EU Islands Forum is for us a particular joyful moment. Hosting people in the Azores from so many countries with different experiences, visions, and solutions is a privilege. I sincerely hope that beyond the work sessions, you will find time to experience the touristic, environmental, and cultural quality of the Azores, our hospitality, our landscape, and our gastronomy. Let me assure you that this path to sustainable development is one we will continue to follow with sheer determination. We are, for example, exploring the possibilities for an unprecedented investment in the acquisition of 2 electric ferries for regular passengers transport between the islands of Faial, Pico, and São Jorge. This represents a paradigm shift in inter-island mobility, which will allow for a significant reduction in emissions and fuel consumption, with a direct impact on the lives of our citizens and the sustainability of our system. In fact, we are benefiting from the Clean Energy for EU Island technical assistance in this regards. Additionally, we will maintain an active and positive discourse on the importance of energy literacy. We want every citizen to understand the value of energy, the impact of consumption, and the importance of investing in efficiency, whether in buildings, mobility, or decentralized production. Only with knowledge and awareness, we will be able to consolidate this transition. If you don't mind, I would like to renew again my thankful regards for the Clean Energy of EU Island Secretariat for choosing the Azores for this event. As you can understand, it is very important for energy sector, but it is also very important for reinforcing our position in what regards sustainability and sustained tourism development. I wish you all an excellent stay, an excellent forum full of productive discussions, shared best practices, and inspiring ideas. May the next 2 days contribute effectively to making the islands of Europe leaders in clean energy and sustainable development. Thank you very much for your presence, and again, welcome to the Azores. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we're privileged to be here. And with these introductions, we even realize even more how what a special place this is. And obviously, we would like to explore the island more, and some of us will have that chance hopefully later in the week. Good. Two announcements. One, on your chair you have this, and it has some QR codes with the program, with a link to the social wall, with a link to the island pages. So each of the islands has a page where we store all the information, new reports, new insights going on, and then obviously the publications of the island. But there's also a second part which you can actually detach, like this, and it's a postcard. So you can send a postcard, and we don't want to do competition to the local postcard economy, but you can fill it in, you can deposit it, and we will take care of sending it. So if you're late for Mother's Day, you can use this, or you want to send Søren happy birthday, you can send him a card if he wants to share his address. So please make use of this. Now, if you scan the program, you'll see we're a bit behind schedule, but no worries, we'll catch up with that. The next speaker, and again, we're privileged to have him here, is our long-term friend and partner, regional partner, João, Peças Lopes, and he's director of INESC, and he's special for two reasons. One is, in each of our countries, you have an expert or a professor that comes on television every time something happens in your energy sector. And so try to think of that person in your country. Well, in Portugal, that's João. And the first time I was in Madeira, I was in my hotel room, and I was switching on the television in the evening, and we just had dinner, and then in the evening I saw him on television. so he's the go-to expert for the energy transition in Portugal. But more, and that's the second thing that makes him special, he has a long-term commitment and interest in the islands and the archipelagos of Portugal, with Madeira, with Açores, and he's been for decades active in this. And so we're very honored to have you here, and we're also very interested in what you will share with us from your long-term experience as professor in power systems and specialist in the clean energy transition on the Portuguese islands. Thank you very much.
So, bom dia a todos. Good morning, everybody. First of all, let me tell you that it's a big pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the organizers of the forum, the Island Secretariat, the project Clean Energy for You Islands, for inviting me. And so it's a big honor and a big pleasure, as I said. So I'm bringing you a talk about energy transition and public policies for the Portuguese Islands. So I'm going to talk a bit about the Portuguese Islands. I'm going to start by Madeira, and then, I will go to speak a little bit about Azores, although in Portugal we also have two other small islands near mainland, but I mean, they don't have the relevance that both Madeira and Azores have. So in Madeira, there are two main islands in the Atlantic Ocean with almost 260,000 inhabitants. So Madeira is the biggest one, and Porto Santo, you can see it there, is a small one, quite small. So if you want to understand the demand of energy in Madeira, you can see that a very important part of the demand of energy is for transportation. Also in the residential sector, services. And if we want to understand how electricity, because electricity is obviously one of the most important vectors, if not the most important vectors in terms of energy in Madeira. So the generation of electricity per primary energy source, you can see it there, still thermal energy plays the most important role. So you can see there that there is a very large use of fossil fuels, natural gas, and so in this case, this is fuel oils and diesel. But there's already a big effort in terms of renewable generation, hydropower, wind power, and more recently solar photovoltaic. There are very ambitious, I would say, quite bold plans of action for up to 2050 in Madeira. So you can see there the situation that is foreseen for 2030 and 20 years after. There's a strong reduction in the energy demand, and obviously this will be done through a lot of plans of efficiency. Another thing that is quite evident from this figure is that electricity is going to play more and more a significant role. And obviously electricity produced from renewable power sources. That's what you can see there. So wind power, also solar PV, hydro. This is quite relevant, the increase that is foreseen in the coming years also for Madeira. So you can also look here at this is according to the Action Plan for Sustainable Energy and Climate for the Autonomous Region of Madeira, and you can see that there the plans for 2030 and 2050, and so there's a tremendous plan in terms of the increase of renewable generation to produce electricity in Madeira up to 2050, especially 2050. But already in 2030, there are quite ambitious plans for 2030. How is this possible in terms of the public policies that need to be developed? And so you can see it there from this graph over there. You can see that the way how the renewable energy has evolved in the last years. And you can see that in the lower part of the graph, this corresponds to the generation from hydro, wind, and solar PV. And you can see that this has been increasing in the last years, and so the plans are to increase even more. So another important issue here is that wind and solar PV generation, they are expected to increase largely, but mainly through private investments. So solar PV plants and wind parks owned by private investors are already in operation in Madeira and that are planned for the coming years. Another important situation is that there is hybridization of wind and solar PV plants. So by hybridization, I also mean in some cases the use of battery energy storage systems. Another important measure of public policy is the definition of auction mechanisms to remunerate the renewable energy sources. So a few years ago, the regional government decided to find out the reference prices for those auction mechanisms. And those reference prices have been identified through the calculation of the levelized cost of energy. So we have been done, my research group has been involved very much in the identification of those levelized costs of energy, because as you may guess, these levelized costs of energy are much different than the ones that you may have in continental networks in continental areas, because the specificities of islanded systems, problems and costs of transportation demand that this identification of these levelized costs of energy need to be carefully assessed. So this has been done, and by the way, let me tell you that a similar approach is now being done for Azores. Very important also is a list of legislation that was prepared in Madeira. So, let me just highlight the fact that in Madeira in 2019, so it was issued a specific grid code for Madeira that defined the requirements for generation that are such that they are supposed to assure the robustness of operation, because as Mr. Paulo André already presented, operating, exploiting networks in the highlands is very much, it requires a special concern when operating these grids, and therefore it's very important that the new plants, the new renewable power plants, they are capable to provide several services to the operation of the system. So let me tell you, I was also involved in the elaboration of this grid code. We started in 2016. It took us 3 years to define those specific grid codes. Obviously, this grid code, as I'm going to show you next, is very much inspired in what exists in mainland, and of course in what exists in Europe, because this stems from a European directive. Also, it was important to establish the organization and the functioning of the electric systems of the region of Madeira, and this was a regional decree of law issued in 2023. And also, more recently, another legal diploma that defines the framework applicable to production of electricity from renewable energy sources based on single production technology with installed capacity less than 5 megawatts. But let me show you this piece of public policy that was issued in 2019. That was the grid code for Madeira, that defines, so as I said, the requirements for generation, and you can see there the different types of generation units that we defined. So type A, B, C, and D, very similar to what happens in mainland and at the European level, but with different thresholds, because the system is rather small. So this means that different thresholds for the installed capacities of the plants have to be defined. So this was studied very carefully via simulation, addressing the specific conditions of operation of those grids. And for instance, I can give you an example. The injection of active current by those electronic power converters that make the interface with the power grid. So we decided and we identified that it was quite relevant to impose that the injection of active power during faults was very relevant in those situations, because this was helping to keep the balance of the system. While, for instance, in continental networks, the priority is given to reactive power, here in islanded grids, we learned that the priority should be given to try to balance the system even during the presence of the faults. And this can be achieved by injecting active power from the electronic power converter. So these kind of specificities have been identified carefully, and they are now part of this specific grid code. Another important measure of public policy is related with the need of the use of storage systems. as you know, the operation of any power grid, no matter what size this grid may have, the operation with a large amount of renewable energy sources that have a characteristic of time variability. This means there will be periods of the day where there is abundance of the renewable power sources, then some other periods where there is a scarcity. So it means that it's necessary to invest in storage systems. And so this was identified also for Madeira. And so in Madeira, they have invested in reversible hydro pumping storage systems. You can see there one big plant with a capacity of 1 million cubic meters of water. Is a water battery system, if you prefer it this way. And of course, you cannot do that. I mean, these regions cannot do that without the support, the financing from the public money, in this case, the European funding. So that was the case. But at the same time, there was also an investment on battery systems. Battery systems very similar to what Mr. Paulo André has presented, so that have the capability to operate in grid forming mode, which allow to disconnect at least one thermal diesel unit to in this case, those batteries together with the power converters, they replace one diesel unit. And so in this way, it is possible to increase the penetration of the renewable generation in those cases. This means to reduce the curtailment of renewable energy. This is also very important for the private investors because they see that their business plan is less affected by the special characteristics of operation of the system. And also, another measure that is very much technical but is related with the public policy decision, that is the decision to install a synchronous condenser. Synchronous condenser that is there not only to provide high inertia to the system, but also to provide short circuit power. Because this is very important to assure that short circuit power is there when faults take place, and we want that the protection devices operate properly. So in this case in Madeira, two battery energy storage systems, at least one is already in operation and another one is supposed to be in operation soon. So at the same time, grid expansion plans. So the grid expansion plan was revisited to accommodate more renewables and also to accommodate these hydro pumping systems. So you can see there a glimpse of the electrical network of Madeira. Another very important aspect that needs to be addressed in islanded systems is security of supply. So, of course, we want to make the islanded systems greener. This is going to be done via the integration of renewable energy sources that have a characteristic of time variability, but this should not compromise the security of supply. And by security of supply, I mean the capability of covering the demand. So it's more related with what I would call even generation adequacy, if you prefer. So a similar study like the one that I'm showing you here, we have studied for scenarios up to 2030 the security of supply. How have we done that? Well, we have considered them an assessment hour by hour during the next years, considering the profiles of generation from the different technologies, solar PV, wind power, hydro, and so on, even reproducing the operating rules of the system, and also, very important, taking into consideration the possibility of having problems with some of the generation units, and therefore, in this way, we are capable for instance, we use the so-called chronological Monte Carlo simulation technique, and this is a reliability assessment, and it was possible to verify if the plans of expansion of the grid, regarding also the way how the demand is foreseeing to take place, how this can be done without compromising the capability to cover the demand. Of course, this at the end of the day is evaluated via an index called loss of load expectation. This loss of load expectation was defined for about 5 hours per year. So it means that during 5 hours per year, it is possible that the system is not capable to supply all the demand. Another important project in Madeira is the Green Ports project. So the decarbonization of the ports of Madeira and Porto Santo. So this has been studied. Obviously, this means that if we want to decarbonize the ports, this means that renewable generation has to be increased. And again, this is a matter of security of supply also. Obviously, a little bit different because the ports are a different load than the load of the overall other clients. So it means assess the security of supply. It means evaluate the reinforcement of the grid structure. It means develop stability studies to check if the system is capable to operate properly, even in some conditions where suddenly the big load of those cruise boats, cruise ships, is suddenly disconnected, which creates a step. And this means that it is necessary to verify if the system is stable. So all this has been accessed also in Madeira. And now, let me talk about Azores. Last, but not the least, Azores also, there is the archipelago of Azores is composed of 9 islands. So Mr. Paulo André has easy things for me because he has already presented a lot about the Azores and the power systems of Azores. So you have 250,000 inhabitants, a little bit less than in Madeira. This is some information that I got from the Energy Strategy to 2030 for Azores. The way how the consumption in kilotons of oil equivalent, you can see it there. So electricity is the green one. And you can see that obviously fossil fuels, like in Madeira, they still play a very relevant role. Up to 2018, it has been like that. But also in terms of electricity generation, fossil fuel represents the most important part. There is a large part also coming from geothermal energy. It has already been presented better than what I am showing you by Mr. Paulo André. And so in terms of installed capacities, generation installed capacities in the island of Azores, so there are 9 different isolated systems. The largest one is São Miguel, as you already realized. Smaller one is Corvo. You can see it there, the total generation characteristics of those systems. In average, presently about 35% of the electric energy that is consumed in Azores comes from the renewable power sources, mainly from geothermal plants. These are the origins of the electricity produced. The source is also from EDA. So I'm not going to take a lot of time with this slide because Mr. Paulo André has explained better than me the situation in Azores, as you can see. But what I would like to tell you is a little bit more about the Energy Strategy 2030 for Azores, and that involves an increase in efficiency to reduce the demand, and also an increased electrification of consumption that is foreseen and obviously supported by an increase in renewable power sources. So how is this going to be done? Mr. Paulo André also presented it better than I'm showing you now. So the target, as I realized from your presentation, Mrs. Berta Cabral told us that 70% is now the target, right? I had an initial figure that was 80%, very ambitious. Anyway, 70% is still very ambitious, as we for sure agree. But you can see that this will be achieved through the increase in geothermal power, in wind power, some hydro that will be kept there, and very important, solar PV generation. So Azores had not a very relevant contribution from solar PV. What is foreseen for the coming years is that solar PV generation is going also to play an important role for the coming years. Okay, the transmission and distribution grids of Azores, in São Miguel, very similar to what happens in Madeira, a 60 kV network. For the other islands, distribution network is more playing a more relevant role than the transmission part of the grid, as you can see it here. But okay, how do we foresee the evolution of the power sector in Azores and also the part related with the public policy measures? So, as I said, large increase in geothermal, wind and solar PV, and the part related with solar PV mainly coming from private investors. So this is also very important. So private investors are supposed to play an important role in the coming future. Also, like in any other islands, storage is central in all these plans of modernization and the increase of renewable generation. And this will be done through the installation of energy battery storage systems in all islands. The plans are for all islands, although at the moment there are only battery energy storage systems in Graciosa, in Terceira, and in São Miguel. But the plans are for the installation of these systems in the other islands. Obviously, as you already realized, this cannot be done without the support of public money. This is very important to be understood. And especially European funds. So it is supposed that this may take place in the coming years also with this kind of support. So we are expecting to see the pop-up of hybrid solar PV plants. So solar PV plants with battery energy storage systems. By the way, a similar adoption of requirements of generation similar to the Madeira ones. By the way, HEDA presently already adopts STEM technical requirements, although not in terms of a body of a law or a regional decree, but those requirements are already being demanded by the local system operator. And also grid code compliance studies that are required for these new generation plants. This is very important to be sure that the new plants, they comply, they are capable to operate properly in these systems. There is the preparation of legislation that established the organization and function of the electric system of Azores. So this was started in 2024 and it was already finished in 2025. I realized today that is about to be published, hopefully before, in this summer. Okay, let's say it this way. Okay, another important issue and concern that HEDA has is also the development of security of supply studies, as in Madeira. So to define the trajectory of the evolution of the portfolio of generation. So again, it's very, very important that these plans of renewable expansion are supported by security of supply plans, like the ones that I'm showing you here. Again, what we have to do is to check if the reliability indexes like loss of load expectation are within some values, some reference values, in this case 5 hours per year, if I remember. Okay, also a few words about the study case of Graciosa, although Mr. Paulo André already presented it, but just to highlight the importance of the study case of Graciosa, that is an hybrid system with solar PV, wind power, and very important, the storage energy systems with those special converters, but also very important, the energy management system that is there. And a very important lesson that we learned in Graciosa was the need of over-dimensioning the power converters to assure the operation of the protections, the good operation of the power protections. These were studies that my research group did a few years ago when we started making the commissioning tests for this system. And so even apart from the studies, we did tests, real tests, to check if those power converters were capable to comply with the need to supply short-circuit power. This was very, very relevant, not only the synthetic inertia that they were capable to provide, but also short-circuit power. So in Graciosa, it was already possible to achieve a value of about 65% of renewable energy integration in 1 year. As Mr. Paulo André said, several consecutive days with only generation from renewable power sources have been obtained. Well, and I want to conclude because time is passing, time is running. And so the most important conclusions is that, so we are going to see in the coming years an increase in efficiency in energy consumption in both Madeira and Azores. And these are measures of public policy, definitely. Another important public policy measure is the electrification of the local economies that is expecting to take place up to 2050. So I must say that very ambitious targets for both Madeira and Azores have been defined for the renewable energy integration in terms of production of electricity to supply that demand. A priority to renewable energy source integration and energy sources requires to largely increase energy storage use, very, very important, to enhance grid infrastructures, to enforce grid code requirements, to assess periodically, and this is very important, again, let me stress this, to assess periodically security of supply and the dynamic behavior of these islanded systems, to check if the robustness of operation is kept. Because this is central, again, let me stress this, this is central for the economies of these regions. And this is the way for a reliable, robust, clean, and resilient power systems. So, whoops, they want me to shut me down. But I want to say that this is really what is the recipe to decarbonize the islanded economies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And I note that we had,
If there are any questions?
in the break, because I know that, well, we noted that we had 100% renewable energy island for 7 days, but still it's a beginning in the island of Graciosa, so great. Looking for islands who can do better, more than 7 days, and the competition is on. Now, we'll get to work. And when I say work, I think of our two workhorses of the secretariat, Martina and Ricardo, who will introduce the work that will go on after the break. We're a bit behind, but that's not to worry. We'll have a short introduction. We'll take a coffee or a drink, go to the breakout sessions, and start actively participating in this program after this very rich and very interesting introduction where we learned a lot about the Azores clean energy transition and also the one of Madeira. Thank you very much for all the speakers. Martina will introduce the rest.